Imagine a journey to the world's most famous shipwreck. You're in a high-tech submersible with just four other people. It's supposed to be the adventure of a lifetime, but then it turns into a global mystery, one that ends in a haunting tragedy, deep, deep in the North Atlantic. So for 4 straight days, this massive multinational search was underway. We're talking about an area twice the size of Rhode Island. And then a remotely operated vehicle spots something, a debris field on the ocean floor. It's just 490 meters from the bow of the Titanic itself. And just like that, in that one moment, you knew. The search was over. All hope for a rescue was gone. The official cause? A catastrophic implosion. I mean, that phrase alone is just chilling, right? It tells you everything. This wasn't some slow leak or system failing over time. No. At that incredible depth, the pressure is so immense, the vessel would have collapsed inward on itself in less than a millisecond. For the 5 people inside, it would have been over before their brains could even process what was happening. Instantaneous. So the big question is, how did this even happen? This wasn't the first trip to the Titanic, not by a long shot. And deep-sea exploration, believe it or not, actually has a really, really good safety record. So what made the Titan so different? What went so catastrophically wrong? Well, let's dive in and break it all down. Okay, so to really get what went wrong, you first have to understand what this mission was. This wasn't your typical scientific expedition, not at all. This was basically extreme adventure tourism, run by a company called OceanGate. And get this, for a cool $250,000, wealthy thrill seekers could buy a ticket to become a mission specialist and go see the wreck for themselves. And on this particular trip, you had quite a crew. There was Hamish Harding, a British billionaire adventurer. This guy had been to space and the Mariana Trench. You had Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a total legend in the Titanic world, a French explorer who'd been down to the wreck 37 times. Then there was Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son, Suleiman. And at the controls, piloting the sub, was the CEO of OceanGate himself, Stockton Rush. So where were they headed? Almost 4 kilometers. That's 2.5 miles straight down into the Atlantic. To give you some perspective, a recreational scuba diver might go down about 40 meters. This is a whole different world. We're talking about the midnight zone. Pitch black, freezing cold, and just unimaginable pressure. And that pressure is really the name of the game here. At the depth of the Titanic, the pressure is almost 400 times what we feel just standing here on the surface. Think about that. Any vessel that goes down that far has to be an absolute engineering marvel, designed to handle a crushing force that's like having thousands and thousands of tons pressing in on it from every single direction. So the question is, how was the Titan built to survive that kind of environment? Well, this is where we get to the vehicle at the heart of this whole story. And as you're about to see, this thing was, well, it was anything but conventional. First off, let's clear something up. The Titan was a submersible, not a submarine. What's the difference? Well, a submarine can sail out of port and come back all on its own. A submersible, like the Titan, is basically helpless without a mothership. It needs a support vessel, in this case a ship called the Polar Prince, to take it out to sea, drop it in the water, and pick it back up. And when we say its design was unconventional, that's putting it mildly. The hull, the main body, was made from a mix of titanium and, get this, experimental carbon fiber, a material that's just not what you typically use for this kind of deep dive. The whole thing was piloted with a modified video game controller. Yeah, you heard that right. And maybe the most critical part? The passengers were bolted in from the outside. There was literally no way for them to open the hatch themselves, even if they managed to get back to the surface. And this is where the story really takes a dark turn. You see, the fact that the Titan was so experimental wasn't some big secret. The CEO, Stockton Rush, actually seemed proud of it. He saw himself as an innovator pushing the boundaries. But a lot of people in the tight-knit deep-sea exploration community, they saw something else. They saw a reckless, dangerous gamble. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to the CEO's own philosophy, in his own words. He seemed to think safety regulations weren't there to protect people. They were just getting in the way of innovation. This quote, from an interview he did just a year before the tragedy, pretty much tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. And the warnings, they weren't subtle. They were loud and clear. Back in 2018, his own director of marine operations was fired after he wrote a scathing report about safety issues. The same year, you had dozens of industry leaders, we're talking explorers, scientists, engineers, send a letter basically begging Rush to stop, warning him that his experimental approach could lead to a terrible accident. They told him, get the Titan certified, get it properly tested. He just refused. So you see how all the pieces were falling into place, right? You've got this unconventional design, a CEO who openly dismisses safety rules, and a whole paper trail of experts screaming stop. It was a recipe for disaster, and it all came to a head on that final dive. So what actually failed? Well, the consensus from experts, including people like James Cameron, who's an experienced deep-sea explorer himself, points to one thing: the hull. That experimental carbon fiber hull that Stockton Rush was so proud of. See, unlike solid titanium or steel, carbon fiber can get weaker with each dive, developing tiny flaws you can't even see. And then it doesn't bend or leak. It just fails, suddenly, catastrophically. It was the exact thing the experts had been warning him about for years. And the irony is just staggering. It's a chilling echo of history. The very shipwreck they were going to see held the ultimate lesson. The Titanic was called unsinkable, a product of hubris. And as this quote suggests, there's a direct line between the arrogance that doomed that ship a century ago and the mindset that sent this submersible to its own grave. Stockton Rush said he broke the rules because he was an innovator, a pioneer. But this whole tragedy really forces us all to ask a tough question. Where is that line? When does being a bold innovator cross over into just being dangerously negligent? As we keep pushing the boundaries, exploring the next frontier, how do we make absolutely sure that we're not just repeating the mistakes of the past,